Thursday, 4 o'clock is not a good time.
Are you done with your class?
I have one more session today.
And then you will be free at 4
Then I'm
o'clock?
done.
Okay.
Yeah, then I'm done.
All right, great. So I'm going to start in the interest of keeping us on track. So the first order of business is approval of the minutes from the May meeting. Thank you very much, Susan. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Excellent. Second?
Second.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to suggest? Seeing none, I will take the vote on the meeting, on the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Any opposed and any abstentions?
Well,
Thank
I abstained because I wasn't there.
Thank you very much. Actually, Karen, if you've read them and understand them, you can actually vote for them, but abstention is fine too.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll vote for it then. There
All
you
right.
go.
All right. So the second one is many of us are at-large members. And so our term runs until the end of this month. So if you want to renew, you have to get in touch with Jeannie Mack at Town Hall. Her extension is 1101, or you can email her and get on the agenda for the June 22nd Select Board meeting where they're doing reappointments.
Gary, I called her just to make sure, because
Yeah.
I couldn't remember whether I had emailed, and she told me that everyone had been in touch with her according
yeah.
to her records, and she did not think we had to be there on June 22nd.
Yeah, I can only tell you that I have seen them say, no, they're not here, we'll wait. I think that you could, I'm not suggesting this strategy, but you could always log on and do something else, and as long as your name was there, I think you meet the criteria. But be that as it may, is there anyone who is not renewing their membership? Terrific. So thank you very much. We look forward to another good year. The second one is the election of officers for the coming year. And I would be glad if I tried to convince a couple of people that they might like to be the new chair, but I haven't been successful so far. But is there anyone who would like to volunteer to be the chair? All right, so I will say, if you nominate me, I will serve for one more year and one more year only, so that we will cross the bridge of who will be the chair next year. It does come up fast, so if someone would like to propose that.
I will nominate you, Gary.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Excellent. There's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, then I will take the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? So that's terrific. Now, Susan, the next officer is secretary.
Well, I have not recruited a replacement, but if there are any volunteers,
One of your jobs is that you have to keep the job until you can find somebody else. So
I'm sort of kidding. I'm totally fine to keep it up.
excellent. So I would nominate Susan to be secretary.
Second.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll take the vote. All those in favor of Susan serving as secretary? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. So this is the first time I'm hosting without, oh, thank you. Do you have a question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just wanted to say I don't think I have been sworn in yet, so I don't think I can.
Oh, okay. So
I
that's,
dropped off all the documents that I needed to town hall earlier today, so I think I'm just waiting to hear back from Jennifer
Okay.
and get a date to get sworn in. So that's why I'm not gonna be
That's fine.
but I'm
That's fine.
still gonna be sitting in.
Thank you,
Today.
Elizabeth. We'd be
Okay.
more than happy to have you. Okay, so I've lost my train of thought, but this is the first time I'm hosting without having Rebecca here to help me through how to share. And I tried to share before to put the agenda up and the various articles, but I haven't been successful at that. So does someone have the agenda in front of them?
I do.
Do,
Is the next item the ADU update?
yes. Mhm.
Okay, so Sharon, would you like to give us an update on where we are with the ADU?
Sure. So on Tuesday, there was the third and not yet final planning board meeting. And I really thought it was going to be kind of quick and they were just going to vote, but somehow it managed to go on for at least an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45. And there were still 3 members of the planning board who were in favor of recommending, because what they need to do right now is vote to either recommend, to not recommend, or no recommendation. And so there were 3 members who wanted to vote to recommend and 3 members who didn't want to vote to recommend. And 1 member was absent, and so it was a tie. And then there was a little bit of a kerfluffle over what that means, what a tie vote means, and I'm still not entirely clear on that. So the chair wanted to take a second vote. And again, I'm not even going to worry about that. You know, so basically David Mead Fox, who is a well-reasoned and I think, you know, well-meaning man, he voted to recommend, but he wanted to bring sort of a list of recommendations, things that were problem spot for the planning board. And they sort of came to this agreement that, well, if it got voted in, then they would spend the next year writing their own version and trying to get it passed next year at town meeting. So whatever. And so so we're interested to see what those recommendations will be. And once we find out, we'll discuss them and we'll maybe be able to respond to them at town meeting. We already know basically what they're opposed to. And personally, I feel like, I feel like they're wrong. So,
I mean,
you know,
Sharon,
that won't fly at town meeting though.
Sharon, what are they opposed to?
Well, they feel that they shouldn't be by right, that you should still need a special permit to do it. And, you know, some of the arguments against that are that, number one, across the country, when it requires special permitting, the numbers of ADUs just don't grow.
Right.
And what does grow is illegal apartments.
Right.
But the other point, which I think is maybe more germane right here and will resonate, is that we would be asking people who want to build ADUs to do things that we wouldn't require of other people who just want to add another bedroom to their house, which is really what an ADU is doing. They're not adding any extra bedrooms. They're just rearranging the configuration of bedrooms and putting in a kitchen so that someone could live with that bedroom independently of the main house. So it's not really, and someone can add, if you have the acreage, you can build another bedroom on your house without anybody saying boo. So, and you can rent that out as Airbnb. And you can, you know, there's all kinds of things you can do by right, as long as you're not building a small separate unit that someone would live in year round. So that doesn't feel quite right. well, what that kind of does is favor the people that have money and may or may not be living here year round. That's one way to look at it.
Who grants the special permit if you need one?
Zoning board.
ZBA.
Yeah,
Oh, so, I mean, obviously, that's another way they can block them.
Well, so the zoning board, and Jan could speak to this more than I can, but the zoning board basically just
Oh, I'm
upholds.
sorry. I was thinking that, I was confused between the zoning board and the planning board. I withdraw that
No.
comment. I'm sorry.
No, the planning board is in charge of really the legislation, and the zoning board is in charge of making sure that it's adhered to.
Got it.
Them and the building inspector. I mean, essentially, would you say that's a correct characterization, Jan?
Well, the building inspector takes care of enforcement.
Yeah.
We adjudicate the zoning bylaws. So
Okay,
if you're required to get a special permit, you have to come before us and present your case, and
Right.
it goes from there.
so, so anyway, and if you go before the ZBA, then your neighbors have a chance to oppose, they're all notified and they can come in and, complain or oppose, whatever. As opposed to if it's by right, then really, as long as the zoning regulations are upheld and all other state, federal, and local laws are upheld, then you would be allowed to build it.
do they articulate what they think the special permit would provide as far as some protective measure?
Well, they like the idea that the abutters can weigh in. But if you're building an addition onto your house by right, the abutters don't get to weigh in. Right? So once again, it's kind of like saying, oh, well, this is a special case. And, not everybody agrees with that.
Mhm.
It takes longer. There are additional costs associated with it.
It can be intimidating to some people.
Yeah, oftentimes people have to hire an attorney. So let me interrupt for just a second. Welcome, Ann. Thank you for joining us. Ann
Sure.
Sutton's joined us all.
I couldn't get on for a little while. I don't know why.
It's probably me, to be honest.
So they had other objections beyond that. And, I think most of them honestly have been addressed. But again, it's a difference of opinion. So, they object, the way it's written, you can have, as many ADUs by right as your lot will allow. And I can understand their discomfort with that. But that was the way some of our drafters really felt strongly about. So that's the direction we went in. What are some other things? I mean, they really think that these are going to become Airbnbs. And of course, once again, you can build a bedroom and it can be an Airbnb, but the purpose of this is for it to be year-round housing, and it will be monitored. And we're going to have to make sure that happens better than it has in the past. And they're also concerned that the AADUs will go by the wayside and the rent will shoot way up. But the allowable rent on the affordable accessory dwelling units is really quite close to what the market will bear for people who are living and working year round. So if someone wants to move here from Boston and they make big bucks and they're working remotely, then yeah, they can afford to pay more. But someone who's working at Wellfleet wages is not really going to be able to pay $2,000 for a studio, for example.
And anyone who would like to maintain the affordability could still also get the tax abatement.
Yes.
That is under, not part of the zoning bylaw, but part of the special legislation that the town has.
Yeah. And they would like to see it for incentives for renting it within affordable guidelines. And I am fully in support of that. We just haven't gotten the trust to a place where we're ready to kind of tackle that. But I think that's something that we might consider looking at in the future. I certainly will recommend it.
So do you want to talk about some of your outreach work now, the flyer and the posters and?
Yeah, so actually, we do now have up on the town website. So if you go to the homepage on the town website, there's a button that says Town Meeting 2021. And you click on that, and it has, kind of a large full page that talks a little bit about, when and where, and you can click on something else for more information. And then there's a sidebar. And one of the things that you can click on in the sidebar has to do with pre-town meetings. And if you click on that, well, if you clicked on it before yesterday, before I sort of brought it to the attention of a couple of different people, then you got something from last fall's pre-town meeting, or maybe, I don't know, some other time, along with a lot of, information about different proposals, different articles, and that the submitters of the articles posted. But there wasn't a place to do that for our stuff. So I got in touch with Rebecca, and so now our fact sheet is up on that page. And on the fact sheet also tells you where you can go to get to our frequently asked questions. So that was good. And also the frequently asked questions and the fact sheet, I think, are both up on the forum webpage.
So let's stop there for a second, Sharon. Two things. Can you, when you have your poster as well as the frequently asked questions and any other material, share it with the rest of the members of the committee, so we can be out there promoting support for the ADU.
Yeah. So I've been back and forth with Stephanie, and they did, sort of take a poster that they had from Sandwich and added some things to it, but I wasn't entirely comfortable with the wording because it said currently ADUs are allowed, and not really, that's, so I sent it back to her, and they haven't gotten it back to me again.
Well,
yet.
whatever material we have, let's get to the committee members so that we can be out there supporting it.
Well, right now we don't have like any printed, you mean printed material?
Yeah, you have your frequently asked questions.
Well,
Can
those
you
aren't
send-
printed out, but people certainly can access them.
No, but can you send them electronically to the rest of the people on the partnership?
Sure, or they can access them, already.
Yeah, we might as well, be active in our outreach. But the other thing that Sharon mentioned is that, I believe it's Monday night, is the forum.
Yep.
Where they're discussing the town warrant items.
Town
For
meeting.
those of you who haven't yet received your warrant, the ADU, they managed to make it the very last, other than the housekeeping items on the agenda. So I don't know where it will go in the forum discussion, but we will wait and see on that. Do you know if Danny's going to bring it up
Bring it up. Well,
earlier?
oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, okay.
I think mostly the pre-town meeting does focus more on articles that are likely to be controversial, or that people are likely to have questions about, or whatever. So, it may be at the end of the evening, but I imagine it will come up.
And who is running the forum that evening?
Who is what?
I don't know.
Who- Don't know? Okay.
Who is running it?
Yeah, does Danny run it? Who else? Is it-
Danny will be there,
And Sheila Lyons?
basically
or-
running it. Yeah. And Sheila probably will show up, or Dick Elkin, one of the two of them.
Okay. All right. So anything else on the ADU? Oh, by the way, I did see, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just want to know, Sharon, did the select board, I watched not this planning board meeting, but the one before. Did the select board take that version back and then make additional edits?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
out of
they
curiosity,
turn-
when
they
you-
turn things.
if
what?
you have a copy of it sometime, would you send it to me?
They were
But
for
you
the
mean
most
it's
part,
sort of
Dan,
the copy with the red changes in it, the red edits, so you can see what they were?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah.
They were not substantive, Jan, but
Okay.
could certainly get a clean copy. But anyway, you should be getting your warrants in the
Oh, that's
mail
true. Sharon, don't bother then. Don't bother. It's fine.
soon.
I'll wait till I get my warrant.
Well, you won't be able to know what the changes are unless you go through it with a magnifying glass.
Whatever, you got a lot to do. That's okay. I'll be able to read through it and see what.
Okay,
Okay.
just a button.
Anything else on the ADU bylaw? Jan, I did happen to be with Harry yesterday, and we asked the question about a 3-3 vote. And he says, just record it as a 3-3 vote. It's perfectly reasonable.
So one question that may come up to you if you find yourself talking to anybody about the ADU bylaw is that people are somewhat confused that there's two versions of it on the warrant. And the reason for that is that, one was petitioned and it had to come in at a certain deadline. And of course, a petitioned article cannot be changed in any way until it gets to town meeting floor, and then it can be changed. And then I presented the bylaw to the select board, and they adopted it as their own. And so they're allowed to make edits on that, but nobody else is. And so when it comes to town meeting, and I've spoken with Danny about this, if 45, which is the select board's edited version, passes, then 46 will be withdrawn. If 45 doesn't pass, we have the opportunity, and I'm going to be discussing this with my other drafters. We have the opportunity of maybe tweaking 46 a little bit to make it more passable and try again.
You mean at town meeting?
Yeah, we can present it. It would be a matter of saying, we present Article 46 as printed in the warrant, except for in such and such section, we would like to change this.
And you would do that based on the feedback at town meeting about why
Yeah,
they,
and based on things. So in other words, I don't really want to tip my hat here. So, we would, it might be things that the planning board has asked for, and it can't be substantial changes, and it has to be changes that are in the more restrictive direction. So you couldn't make changes to something on town meeting floor that enlarge the scope of it. You can only limit the scope of it. And we would be running any potential changes past Danny before town meeting to make sure that they fall in that. And I have spoken to him, and he said that shouldn't be a problem. So just so you know, it's really not, well, anyway, that's what was recommended, and we've spoken to a number of different people, including the moderator. So that's
Everyone's information, town meeting is Saturday morning, the 26th of June. And I would encourage anybody and everybody, whether you are a voting member or not, or whether you vote in the town or not, to come. It's very interesting, and it's very informative about what people think in the town. Sometimes it's surprising, things that we think that will be straightforward or not, and vice versa. It takes 10 minutes to pass a $20 million budget, and then it can take 2 hours to pass a relatively minor thing. So it depends on what's on people's mind. All right, anything else on ADU, Sharon?
no, I think that's it.
Okay. All right, so there are a large number of housing-related items on the warrant. I'm going to just touch on some of the more important ones, I think. So the first one is there's a $500,000 request for CPC funds that was made in our name, the partnership and the Housing Authority, to fund the new housing trust. So now in September, we passed the housing trust bylaw. So we've been in formation on the trust for the last 8 months, and we're in fairly good shape to go forward, but we have no money. So this is a request to do that. And 500,000 is actually not out of whack with what other towns do in our area. And it's for really a number of things. It has flexibility, but I would say that my impression of the top rated things are support for 95 Lawrence. The second is there is considerable discussion about the fact that there is no town-owned land available, and we need to look at acquiring commercial property. So that some of that money could be used for buying land to build, whether it be rental or home ownership opportunities. And then I think the third, given the successful buy down that we've just had, which is our 7th, is probably another round of buy downs, excuse me, funding or grants going forward, maybe in the fall. But the 500,000 is to see the new housing trust. So that's the biggest CPC article. There are a couple of others that are housing related. Any questions on that?
Um,
Go ahead, Ann.
CPC is recommending.
CPC has recommended it, and the select board has recommended it, and
Right.
obviously we, the partnership has, the housing authority, the trust has, I believe the finance committee has. So I think it's a large amount of money, so you never know what's going to be people's reaction. And the other possibility is that, like last year, there's a thing called the consent agenda, where all the CPC articles could be taken together for the sake of expediency. And for the most part, CPC has been non-controversial.
Right.
And then it might not be considered as a separate item, but lumped in with all the others. We'll wait and see if that happens. But we are ready to speak on behalf, and certainly if any of you are interested, and if there is a discussion, feel free to get up and speak to that item. The next one on the warrant is the wastewater request. We sent a letter that I wrote, frankly. I had to get it in to the wastewater committee because they had submitted a MassWorks grant. So the request, if I remember correctly on the warrant, is for 1.9 million. And that's associated with the wastewater treatment facility. And so the voters will vote on that. But even before that, we had an opportunity to seek almost the full funding from the state, which is called MassWorks. So the committee, the wastewater committee, and some others put in a request for that. Some of you know that last year we put in a request for MassWorks for, I think it was 1.7 million for the extending the drinking water, the water system. So both to provide the redundancy we need as well as the capacity to support 95 Lawrence. And that was awarded by the state to Wellfleet and is now in process. So that is a grant we got and it's going forward and will make the drinking water totally available for 95 Lawrence. And if the wastewater is passed at town meeting, independent of whether we get the grant or not, we'll go forward with that. But if we get the grant, obviously we'll take care of the funding for it. So that's likely to be a topic of conversation both at pre-town meeting and at town meeting. But it's a wastewater treatment plant that would service 95 Lawrence in phase 1, the 46 units planned. And then after that, the police, fire, and the school. And then after that, residential users in the area. And all of that geared towards not just reducing the flow, but actually reducing the nitrogen in Duck Creek and from there into the harbor.
Gary, just so I understand the process, this item is asking for 1.9 million from the town, but if we get the money from the state, then that request sort of
Yeah,
goes away.
So Susan, what it is, this is a borrowing request. So it's not actually asking the approval of the wastewater, although that obviously is the main issue. But this says, we authorize you to borrow the money.
Got it.
Now, if we get the grant, we won't have to do the borrowing. If we don't get the grant, we can still go through with it. And Wellfleet has a excellent rating, financial rating. So we are well received in the bonding community. So it's fairly easy to raise that money if we needed to do that.
There was a good article in the Independent that's coming out today that I got online about that, the wastewater issue.
Our wastewater,
Yeah, in the
right.
local news.
Absolutely. Oh, good. I would also say, just as a side note, is Orleans yesterday had their town meeting, and they passed support. They have a affordable housing project that is the rehab of the old Cape Cod 5 facility in Orleans, and they are funding that by bonding the CPC money. So what that means is that, every year we raise money for part of our real estate taxes, and we also get a match. It's not 100% match, but a match from the state. And so that is really a measurable income. So we can bond future CPC years in order to raise money now. And they've raised, if I remember correctly, $2 million of CPC funds that has no additional cost to the town, since they're essentially borrowing on future receipts that will let them go put that money towards the Orleans affordable housing project at Cape Cod 5. Yes, Jan.
Gary, with this wastewater treatment plant, it wouldn't be built until 95 Lawrence actually, everything cleared and they actually started building 95 Lawrence? Is it dependent on?
No, not exactly, Janet. So the scenario or the sequence would be, let's say it passes town meeting.
Yeah.
So then whether we get the grant, if we get the grant, obviously it makes it easier. But if we don't get the grant, then they'll have to go out and raise the money.
I'm sorry, I'm on a Zoom for the housing. I think
But anyway,
I
Karen,
couldn't see you.
Karen.
Hello.
Karen, mute yourself.
I think I'll see.
Oh, well. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So what will happen is we're now in the RFP process for 95 Lawrence, so everybody knows, and the due date for that is August. So the developers will put in their responses. We'll talk about, okay, so the developers will put in their responses and we will select a developer. Once we have a developer and they are going forward with the development and acquiring both the funding they need as well as the permitting, then concurrent with that, the wastewater will go forward. Our commitment in the RFP is that we will provide the wastewater within 2 years of making that selection. So 95 Lawrence is several years in the future in terms of actually breaking ground. But we should have the wastewater well in hand by then.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Gary, the
Yes.
wastewater treatment will be at site at 95 Lawrence?
Yeah, so if you know that we are proposing that they use 6 acres of that 9-acre site. And so some of the land that is not used for the affordable housing will be carved out, if you will, for the wastewater treatment facility. It sounds grander than it is, guys. It's a relatively small building that houses the wastewater treatment. If anyone wants to see one, go to Nauset Green, the housing facility that they just did in Eastham, and you'll see this little thing off to the side. That's the wastewater treatment plant. And then like a Title V septic, it also has a leaching field. So that's a bigger thing, but likely to be under the baseball field. But that engineering remains to be done.
Thank
There
you.
is, for anyone who's interested, and I'm happy to circulate this also on the town website, there is about 100-page assessment and of the wastewater for 95 Lawrence that the town did as part of the project. So feel free to go to the, or if you can't find it, let me know, and I'm happy to send it to you if anyone needs reading material to put them to bed at night. Okay, are there any other questions on wastewater? Yes.
Actually, it's not wastewater, but it's 95 Lawrence. Can I ask it?
We have it on the agenda a little further on, so but we might as well take it now while it's in discussion. Go ahead. What's up?
Well,
What's
I
your
was just
question?
wondering how the site visit went the other day.
The site visit is tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay.
Tomorrow, for everyone's benefit, tomorrow at 11 o'clock at home plate at the baseball field is the start of the developers site visit for the RFP.
So developers are coming tomorrow?
Developers are coming tomorrow.
And how many developers have shown any interest at all?
There are, don't hold me to this, but there have been at least 25 inquiries.
What? That's
Wow.
great.
Well, an inquiry doesn't necessarily, I mean, it costs a lot of money and it obviously is, it's a big undertaking for a developer to respond, but.
Sure, but it's better
at
than
least
5
yeah,
inquiries.
At least there has been interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Good.
we're encouraged. We'll see what, we'll see who comes tomorrow and what the question, this is their opportunity to ask questions too. So we'll see where the questions come out.
Is this open to anyone who wants to show up?
It is an open thing. I wouldn't say that we are encouraging broad participation. We do have a core group representing the wastewater, the water department, the housing task force, the DPW, the town administration. So I think we are well represented there. All right, so any other questions on 95 Lawrence? All right, so as I say, that's going forward tomorrow, and I'll have more to report at the next meeting. All right, so the other items on the agenda, there are some other wastewater items on the agenda, and the wastewater committee asked for our support on those. We did not actually vote on those. But you can take a look at them. One is about support for IA systems, and I think there is another one. So that is on there. There is the ADU bylaw that we've already talked about. And if I'm not mistaken, there are the trust bylaws. So there are literally pages worth of bylaw reading at the end of the warrant. So something to keep you up at night. All right, are there other questions about town meeting or the warrant? Any other proposals that people have? All right, so the next item of business, I think, is Sharon and Susan have been working on activities for our summer of fun. Do you want to talk about I think it's a terrific idea that we are doing a story slam, a housing story slam when I say we, is I think Sharon and Susan have been doing the yeoman work on it. And it's on August the 11th.
Yep.
I
Have
did
we-
send
have we
around,
figured out- have we
did
figured out
everybody
the
get my
time?
letter that I sent?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
What is
so-
the time, Susan?
I think we're thinking about 6 to 8. That's what the hall recommended. It's based on sunset and, what sort of when their experience suggests that they'll get the biggest crowd.
Great. So why don't you talk about these activities and the story slam?
I pretty well laid it out in my letter that I sent everybody. There isn't any really new news. We will be meeting next week to, drill down on it some more. And I'm very pleased that Stephen Russell is working with us. I think that's really a great addition. And, there are some questions like, what's the best way to get some money out of this? Although, from my perspective, I think the most important thing is for people to walk away going, wow, there's really a need and I can do something about it. So, like even the $500,000, if we get it from CPC for the trust, that's a drop in the bucket of what, so of what we need. So what we're really wanting is, people with money to figure out ways that they can either give us some of it or give us some land or give us some houses or, there are various ways of leveraging money that people that have investments have and stuff like that, that it doesn't actually, the money gets used and then paid back and it doesn't actually cost them anything. So, we're trying to get people to be creative. And
I'm
what?
sorry to interrupt, but in terms of Story Slam, that's a focus of the night, but we really want to get anyone who's interested in learning more about the housing problems in Wellfleet. We would love to have, summer visitors, and certainly in terms of what Sharon's talking about, seasonal residents and people who live and work in Wellfleet and want to hear more about what's going on. It's, at least I don't see that night as a fundraising event itself. I see it as an awareness raising and certainly a cultivation for fundraising event. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Stephen is getting a bunch of really good musicians from what he describes. And we found it so far, I think would sound like 2 or 3 really good storytellers, and we'll find a couple more. So I think we really want to talk it up as like, a big evening. Come and have fun, eat oysters.
And Jason and Elizabeth are providing a raw bar,
Right.
which is fabulous.
you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Well, and with
Are we at least paying for that?
the proceeds are going to
Are
us.
we paying for that, paying for them?
No, the people will buy their oysters. They're
Oh, I
shelling
see.
out for
All right. We should certainly, Elizabeth, if you
Yeah.
incur any expenses that are not covered, we will certainly reimburse you for that.
Thank you. We were planning on just donating the whole thing, and
No.
You know.
you shouldn't. Right.
but yeah, we can talk about that later. But that was our intention, is to just we that time of the year we have a lot of oysters because they're growing so much, so we usually sit on a lot, and this is a really great way for us to share what we do and what we love to do with our community. So we are very happy to do it.
Good. Well, we're
And they're also
really
going to
pleased
be
to have you.
storytellers. Jason and Elizabeth and their boys will also be telling a story. So
Excellent. And are the Habitat folks, Susan?
What was that?
Are your Habitat folks going to be?
That's been a slow process. I'm hopeful.
Okay.
I think so. And I've also talked to the Seasonal Residents Association board, and they're very enthusiastic. I think Sharon and I and Stephen have to talk a little bit more about exactly what we think their role ought to be. But in terms of cultivating people who could do some of these creative financing things, I think that's a target audience.
So a couple of observations. There is the strategy that the Corral uses, the Outer Cape Corral, which is nothing to get in, something to get out. So it's just a thought. But that you're right. That's a $10 and $20 thing, not a big bucks thing. But
What the Hall does at these kind of events is one of two things. They suggest that we have a sign up on their Eventbrite site with
Right.
tickets are free, but we know who's coming and anyone can show up anyway. But it's, do you want to donate? And then the same thing, they'll are happy to be at a table in the front registering people and suggesting, having a donation jar or something.
I think you're right, is that capturing the contact information
Yes.
is really important for us to do for the follow-up. So let's make sure whatever we have to do that. And I'm sure there are people here who will volunteer to help with that.
Right.
And Gary had a good idea also, as far as the seasonal homeowner association. One thing that might be a possible way for them to get involved would be to have them raise a certain amount of money, say $50,000, and look for matches, or $10,000 and look for matches. I think that might be an interesting way to kick things off.
Wait, to have the association donate money and look for matches?
Well, or just, if they have members who want to kind of pool some larger donations together to create one larger donation, and then put it out there as, we're looking for the community to match this.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea.
I think you're in touch with Kurt, right?
Kurt,
Who's our representative on the seasonal homeowners? Who's on the task?
Carl
on
Sussman.
Carl Sussman.
Carl, excuse me, Carl.
Yes, so Carl and I have had several conversations, and he's reached out to Susan, who's the president, Susan Reverby, and I think they've also polled their board members, and
Right.
everyone is in favor. So, it's just a question of coming up with.
Right, how do we capture that?
Yeah.
Going forward. There was a suggestion I heard, was to invite Julian Sear and Sarah Peak. I think it would be a fun event for them. They are excellent storytellers, and I'm sure that they could tell some stories, if not themselves, of what they've heard about housing. And they obviously have a certain cachet.
Yeah, that's a
And
great.
they'd have to have the same time limit.
I'm sure that you can hush them up.
Well,
Right.
I guess that'll be Stephen's job. Oh, and we also have this person who's a Story Slam expert, Vanessa, somebody who's going to help us.
Part of median.
Wait, who, and you, and our members, are there other stories either that you would like to tell, or that people who have interesting housing stories? Judy, you want to get your daughter to talk?
No,
Oh. Right, that would be a good story about a young family. And but if you know of people, was it Gary Joseph?
He's going to do.
Gary Joseph is going to speak.
Right.
And
Now,
I heard a rumor that Gary's partner when he was working on his house was Paul Suggs.
no.
And
Is that true?
maybe Paul would add a little liveliness to the conversation.
Paul is always a lively addition.
So for those of you who don't know, there was a program called the Self-Help Home Building, where people got together and helped to build each other's homes. And I think that's the program that Gary Joseph was a part of.
Yeah, it's a great program,
Yes, unfortunately, they don't fund it anymore.
right?
And
But the fact that was like 40 years ago, And most of these people are still living in the houses that they built. And
exactly right.
they're pivotal members of our community, and their children were brought up here, and many of them are living in the community. I mean, I think it's really a story that needs to be told, and it's like, how can we do this again?
Right, and we could create our own version of that. Gary shared with me, and I don't know how many other people have seen a Zoom meeting about Martha's Vineyard and the kinds of things that they're doing creatively in the community now. Just, I mean, it really was eye-opening.
Yeah.
Right, that's a topic. I'll put that on the agenda and I'll send that out, Susan. But it's what both Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket have really harnessed some of their wealthy supporters to underwrite some of their activities, and it's been very successful. Okay, is there anything else? Do you need volunteers at this point, Susan, Sharon? You need people to sign up, please?
I think we need to keep it a small organizing committee at the moment.
Okay, when you're ready, let us know.
No, but we're definitely will need feet and
Right,
brain
whether
help when
Ushers
we're-
or ticket takers or
yeah,
name
and
collectors or-
publicizing it. And
Yeah.
Lisa, who's with us tonight, has volunteered to help too.
Oh, wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, so do you want to talk about the other activities, Sharon?
Well, so the other activities are, Anne is with us tonight, and she will be coordinating with some gallery owners so that at different points during the summer, they will be like offering space for some of the buttons that I've been making, and maybe have a painting or something that sort of speaks to home, that they might be offering for sale. You know, the artist would still get their money, but maybe the gallery would donate the commission or something. But it's more awareness raising than money raising. And I did just speak with Susie Nielsen, and you know, she's coming up for air just like you. And she said she thinks that it'd be nice to have some of the buttons scattered at different galleries, so that, you know, someone walks into a gallery and sees a few of them and sees the brochures, and then they go into another gallery and they see some different ones and some brochures, and they, you know, they get the sense that this is really a movement rather than.
I would agree that if there's enough of them, you know, to have it be a little bit of a trend, because one gallery at a time could take a while to catch up with people.
Right. But if people are wandering around town going from gallery to gallery and they keep seeing the same thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And do you want to give just a general description of what you're doing with your new gallery you've taken over?
Well, we're not doing anything too new. We're in a new space again
Right.
for the third year.
It's gorgeous.
And
Where is that space, Ann?
that it's at 55 Commercial Street, the old depot building. We've kind of rehabbed it. My daughter's doing the shop next door, which used to be Town Pizza. She's moving her yoga studio in there. And so in terms of the housing buttons, you know, Sharon and I have just tried to kind of think out a very small display that could just raise awareness, people, in terms of you know, understanding it's really an issue affecting every community, including this lovely little seaside vacation spot. So I think it's a kind of simple ask. I'm hoping galleries are receptive to it, but we'll see. We're going to keep it small, but I like Susie's idea of spreading it around simultaneously instead of, you know, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
People tend to go on that gallery circuit, and if they see it and they don't understand it, then they feel like they're missing out on something. So we'll
And
get.
they are.
If you have if any of you know of someone who has a gallery who might be interested in participating, welcome, John. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. If you have any contacts with other galleries, definitely send them Sharon's way and we can see if we can incorporate them.
Send
Sharon,
them Ashley.
I'm sorry?
Send
Send
them
them
my,
Ashley.
send
Yes.
them my, Sharon's got enough going on. I'll catch up with them. Yeah.
But Sharon, we meant, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, Lisa.
I just have a question. What do you mean by button? Is it a,
I'm sorry. I've been in, so one of the things that I do when I actually have free time is a lot of embroidery. And I like the idea of something that's called craftivism, where you're doing a craft, but for a purpose.
Yeah.
And in this case, so far I've made 35 2 to 3 inch round buttons, pins that all have, say, something different about housing. And they're all embroidered and they're just little, they're not like fabulous works of art, but they're cute. They're cool.
They're great.
Wait,
Okay.
Sharon, are you going to sell them to raise money?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll be for sale.
So if anyone else would like to join in on that, I'm sure you could get in touch with Sharon, and the more the merrier.
wow, are they available to see someplace?
You want to show
Well,
us one? Sharon, do you have one there?
well, I have many here.
Should have
Well,
like
well, she,
them virtually
I'm
too.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I
Anna.
said- We should have a virtual posting of them
Yeah.
because
That's a good idea. So I don't know if you can see this one. You probably can't because
Bring
it's,
close.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
it says lights on in winter means a year-round home.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
This one, I don't know how well this will go over. It might be a little bit of dark humor, but my husband's a cemetery commissioner. And so this one says year-round housing available
Ooh. Ooh. Yeah,
in the cemetery.
yeah, yeah.
So anyway, they're, each one's a little different and it's just been a
Wow.
lot of fun.
Wow,
So
that's
you-
great.
Sharon mentioned a brochure. We're in the process of finalizing a brochure to go along with both these activities, but hopefully in support of the housing items on town meeting warrant.
Yeah.
So look, you think we'll get that?
And the other thing that's happening is Anne mentioned her daughter Lee, who is a fabulous yoga instructor. And Lee is organizing a number of different yoga instructors. And I think she changed the name. I think she wanted to say Oming Home. Is that what she said, Anne?
Oming for home.
Well, that was what I had called it, and she wanted to change it somehow. But anyway, so there'll be different yoga instructors who will offer a class, just one class during the summer. But hopefully we'll have, a number of weeks represented. And the proceeds from that class will go to the Housing Trust.
That's great.
And people will also, it will also, again, be another awareness raising kind
Mhm.
of thing. And it will also be advertising for the yoga instructors because we'll have a poster, in the News Dealer window and things like that.
Great. Is that Lee Witherspoon?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's great.
And her husband is doing the brochure, so it's kind of this family affair.
Got it. Okay.
And her father's going to speak at Story Slams.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yay. All
No,
right.
that was just a joke for Anne.
How- Housing is a family event at the Suggs house.
Well, actually,
Um,
that would be a good button. Housing is a family affair.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
Sharon, can you give us when the going gets tough?
Oh, well, the sort of the tagline on the brochure is desperate times call for generous measures.
That's awesome. That's great.
I think we should be able to start selling them somewhere. I want to buy one.
Uh,
Well, they could come out with a lot of red dots, already sold.
That's true.
Yeah.
This
So
is
we have
big.
to talk We have to talk about pricing too.
Exactly.
Or
Uh,
maybe, yeah, maybe you could sell little kits, like to,
I did think about having button making workshops around town, but I don't know if I have that much energy.
Mhm.
Maybe you could, Sharon, you could enlist some of the other folks on the committee to help. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll get
yeah.
some takers. That reminds me, so if we get the brochure in time for town meeting, which is on the 23rd, which is hopeful, then we hope to be passing it out. We may need a couple of volunteers to help with that. So I think there may be, is there just one way to go into town meeting, or is there more than one?
Well, certainly last year there was only one way in because they wanted to take your temperature. But
Right.
I think they'll probably will just still be the
Yeah.
one way in.
If you're a voter, right.
Well,
Okay.
I'm planning to go for the first time ever, but I can't vote, so I'm happy to do any, volunteer stuff.
Excellent.
You get to hang on the fence.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's our summer fun. Any other questions that people have? Again, I would encourage everyone to join in. The next item on the agenda, I think, is 95 Lawrence, and we've talked about that. Are there any other questions about 95 Lawrence?
I think it's very exciting that we have all this interest.
Yes. So we'll see who comes, and we'll see what we actually get for submissions. Okay. Again, I don't have it right here in front of me.
The Housing Trust is next.
Okay, so the Housing Trust. So as I mentioned before, we've asked for money for the Housing Trust, and the Housing Trust has their bylaws on there. The thing that I think of note on the Housing Trust bylaws is that it asks for support for up to 120% of median income. So right now, we serve up to 100%, which is the limit on CPC. But really, there are many, many people in town who work hard and still can't afford a house. I heard a shocking stat. In April, we had 5 house sales. That's the last month that we have full data. And the median house in Wellfleet was over $800,000. So
Crazy.
you would have.
It's another reason why we want to raise money outside of CPC funds, because money that's raised, privately, can be used for other purposes. So it doesn't have to. So for just as an idea, and this isn't something that we've discussed or anything, but say we want to help somebody build an ADU if they become legal, or we want to have some sort of incentive program for building an ADU, then we can't do that now because they're not limited to an affordable range. So we could do that and be supportive of year-round housing in general, not just year-round housing for people that earn at 120.
Right. It's really, so I would report, we did our tax bill mailing, and we did raise over $15,000 in donations, which is terrific. But is a small amount compared to what it would take to do the kinds of projects that we have in mind, whether it be ADU or home ownership for workforce housing.
Does the Housing Trust have any money now? I thought they had some.
There is a balance in the old trust. For the sake of argument, it's approximately $200,000. And there is an audit going on now in the town. So once that has been concluded and accepted, and I think really it's as of July 1st, likely the new fiscal year for the state, that we will transfer some, if not all of that money to the trust, the new trust from the old trust. Okay, so we were talking about fundraising, and I lost my train of thought here.
MHP planning effort.
Oh, MHP, I'm sorry, forgive me. I sent to you we had a meeting that was hosted by Mass Housing Partnership. And the purpose of the meeting was to redefine the role of the 3 housing groups that we have in town. So it's the partnership ourselves, it's the housing authority, and it's the new trust. And it's a work in progress, but it's that one with all of the boxes and the arrows. But to net it out, the partnership would be responsible for what we do now, outreach and intragovernmental, which really means bylaws, zoning, issues. That is the charge we had before, and it's likely to be the charge that we have going forward.
Gary, I thought there was also some looking for land.
Yeah, so looking for land is likely to be within the purview of the trust, since they have the dollars, but we could certainly look for land.
Yeah.
We have no ability to buy land or acquire land. We can't even accept land if someone wanted to donate it. So it's the trust that would be able to do the, so if I said, what is the trust going to do? It's really 3 things. Yeah, it is the accounting purse strings management. It is land acquisition, and it is development. And then program would be what the housing authority would do. So for instance, Jan, go ahead. Oh, Jan, you're muted. Jan, you're muted.
Kyle chatted with all of us in the chat box that he has to sign off, and he said thank you and goodbye. So I was just waving goodbye to him.
Oh,
Waving. Thank you
Thank
all.
you very much for joining us, Kyle.
No
Did
problem.
Kyle-
Have a good evening.
Kyle, did you have anything you wanted to ask or?
Nothing to ask, just it's really helpful to learn a little bit more about the context of what's going on in Wellfleet. A member of our team is going to be should be at the event tomorrow. His name is Dave Aiken. So look out for him.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yes. All right. You all have a good
Good.
evening.
You
Well,
too.
welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
So Kyle is one of the companies that's looking to potentially build, to submit a response.
Oh, I didn't get that. Oh, that's great.
Either.
That's,
Good for him, he's really doing his homework.
yeah. I think he said he was from Community Builders, which is a big company. Okay, so MHP. So the third thing would be what the Housing Authority would be the program folks. So for instance, the regular rental assistance, the emergency COVID relief program that we run now, the down payment assistance, the administration of the buy down, many of the programs that they still that they run now, they would continue to run. So we're in, I don't know how to shut off my house phone, but anyway, my apologies. So that is an MHP sponsored activity that will meet again on the 30th of June. So if you have any thoughts, well, are there any thoughts that people have about that reorganization? We're just trying to fit the pieces together and not have a lot of open.
I think it's really great to see all on one page.
Yeah.
The things that the different committees are doing. And, you know, I think it's possible to be like on the local housing partnership and maybe think, oh, we're not doing much that's very important or something, you know. But when you sort of see it written down on the page and you say, oh, I am doing that and this, and here's something else I could do. I think that's very useful.
Yes, I think in many ways the partnership is sort of the face to the community of what the housing efforts are. But it's an ongoing process, and we'll meet again and we'll try to define roles going forward. All right. Any other questions on that?
It's
Yes,
not
Jan.
exactly on that, but when the new housing trust is officially formed, okay, will you then dissolve the old one? You said something before about maybe we'll transfer all the money, and I'm wondering why would you keep it in the old housing trust?
We wouldn't. I didn't mean to suggest that it was. So the answer to your question, Jan, is it was created by special legislation, so I'm not sure that we would dissolve it, quote unquote. It may
Okay.
exist but have no role
Okay, got it.
and would have no budget.
All right, I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay. Okay,
If you're about to adjourn, can I just say one thing?
sure.
Which is, you know, we won't have another meeting before the town meeting. So, you know, please get all your friends to come to town meeting for one thing.
Absolutely. Right.
We need, it doesn't matter how much people support housing. We need seats. You know, we need people in seats with their hands raised when it's time for vote. And so that's just like so important. And also, you know, if you can get people to come to the forum so they can have their questions answered, that's also a good thing. That's all.
I would also
Jan.
point out that a zoning bylaw needs 2/3 of the
Yeah.
2/3 majority. It's not just a simple majority.
Right.
Actually, that was, Janice, I think you know that legislation was changed that certain zoning bylaws that meet certain criteria only need a majority vote.
And I'm going to just tell you that Jerry was wrong when he said that I didn't know anything about it. I did know.
Right,
about
I
it.
understand that, but
So does it cover this? Does it include this type of zoning?
I'll let
No,
Karen.
because it wasn't entirely clear. This is such new legislation that really nobody was completely up to speed on it.
Okay.
And it wasn't until the bylaw was completely written and the deadline, and we had already like passed the deadline, we passed in, the petition article was petitioned, that we realized that the simple majority would only apply if the ADU was limited to 1 per lot and was 900 square feet or 50 or less than 50% of the principal dwelling.
So we do need 2/3.
We do need to.
For the ADU bylaw, we're required 2/3.
Hmm.
Okay. Anything else that anyone has?
Gary, there's one other thing on the agenda, shellfishing letter of support for wastewater and housing.
Yeah, when we put in the MassWorks grant for the wastewater treatment facility, we solicited support for from the shellfishermen and for clean water, obviously. That's good for the shellfishing industry. But previously, we had heard that there were 330 people involved in shellfishing directly in commercial shellfishing, not counting anybody in restaurants and shops that take advantage of our identification with oysters. But that generates $7 million in revenue. And obviously the town pays taxes on that, but it's by far and away the biggest industry in town. And it was interesting to see that data in support of both clean water, but what we need to do for housing.
But they did submit a letter of support.
They did. I can share that with you if you have interest. Yes, no? Yeah, if you'd like, let me know and I'll be glad to send it to you. Okay, so the next question is, when will we meet again? And town meeting is the 26th. Do you want the third Thursday in July is the 15th, the fourth is the 22nd. Does anyone have a feeling one way or the other?
I would vote for the 15th, just because, that would be a good time to like share more finalized plans for the summer of fun will already be going on.
Aha,
But
the fun will be rolling, yes.
That would be a good time to like
Sure.
organize around the Pres Hall event.
Great. Does that make sense for everybody? So July 15th, Thursday, July 15th. And do you want to change it from 4 o'clock? Do you want to push it back so it's later? Is there
4
Is it-
o'clock works well for me. I don't know about
4
other people.
o'clock? Anybody else?
4 o'clock is good for me.
All right, so
Fine.
tradition is 4 o'clock. If it's not an issue for everybody, anybody, we'll go ahead and make it 4 o'clock on the 15th of July.
Elizabeth, with little kids, is that good for you? Oh, she's muted. Okay.
I think the answer is no time is good.
No, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you're pretty much right about that, Gary. I think, but yeah, 4 o'clock works. Just as well as any other time.
Right.
I think so. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, does anyone else have any other comment or question? I'm sorry?
I think that was one of the kids.
Oh. Okay, so thank you all for your time. And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Moved.
Very good. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you all for your time. Definitely support all of the housing stuff at town meeting. And we will see you on the 15th, and stay well. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye.